So today I want to break down this concept of stillness and why, if you can't really execute this, or at least if you're not trying to execute this, singing is always going to feel a bit harder than it needs to be. And at the end, I'll also share some practical exercises that can help you start to develop this. So let's dive in. So what do I mean by keeping stillness in the voice? One way you can think of this is, let's just take, a lot of the exercises that you see on the internet. Mum, 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 nay, 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 nay. No, 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 no. There's all these different variations, but what's kind of in common with a lot of them is there are two things that are happening simultaneously. The first part is there is the part that moves. The voice stretches, the pitch changes. You go from low to high, high, back to low. There's a part of this exercise that requires movement. But simultaneously, there's also a part of the sound that doesn't move. It has to stay still. And this is the vowel, or how you articulate the sound, and then also the volume, right? That part of the motion has to stay pretty steady and stay pretty still. Now, you might be wondering, why is this even important? Because of course, in the context of the song, these things will change. The volume will change ever so slightly, the vowel will change depending on how you want to express. But a big part of why it's important to get stillness in an exercise is so you don't have a lack of independency, which means as you're singing up higher, you don't have to get louder. As you're singing up higher, you don't have to open your mouth a bit more. And so really, when you're doing a lot of vocal exercises, there is this kind of feeling of like not really much is changing beyond the pitch. There's a feeling of like stillness. There's a feeling of calm as you're approaching the exercises. If you can do these exercises where you're able to kind of just adjust your pitch without really anything else happening, you might notice when you go back to a song, because you've done this work, your singing will feel easier because you don't have all these dependencies, all these extra movements that you usually would have had to engage to get to the sound. Now, before we dive into some of the exercises to help you with this, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Ivan and I work with students all around the world over Zoom. And so if that is something that you're interested in, links down in the description. I've got ways to work with me privately and also some self-study programs to help you work at your own pace. Last but not least, if you want to inspire our next episode, let me know down in the comments below what you want me to talk about next. Okay, so let's talk about some practical ways or some exercises to help you train in, or at least observe this feeling of stillness. Because as much as I'm talking about keeping stillness, making sure nothing changes, it can be pretty tricky. So the first one here is, let's try this very simple exercise. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to hold out a note on a whoo. This kind of sound. Whoo, whoo, whoo. And as I'm holding out the note, what I'm just noticing is, okay, what's the shape of my vowel? What's the kind of rough kind of volume that I'm playing around with here? And as I'm holding it out, noticing that nothing really has to change that much. I'm not suddenly going, whoo. I'm not really doing anything funky. It just kind of holds out, because that is the stillness that we're looking for. So then if I introduce a change in pitch, I'm trying to look for something similar. There's this feeling of stillness, this feeling of like I don't really change anything except for the pitch, except for the sound kind of shifting up into the head. So if I go, hoo, hoo. So here I'm trying to keep, to the best of my ability, the same vowel and the same kind of volume as what I had on that first kind of whoo. Now, if I notice things like this happening, whoo, whoo, where the vowel kind of gets distorted, kind of loses its shape, or whoo, whoo, where I have to get a lot louder, then I'm going to try redo the rap and see if I can do it even cleaner. It's going to feel a tiny bit like you're reining in a horse. The horse is going to want to do its own thing. It's going to change. The voice is going to want to kind of go in its own direction. But you want to kind of constantly rein it in. So you're like, hey, I'm only going to allow my voice to change pitch whilst keeping this feeling of stillness. Nothing else has to really change. Once you can do this, right, you can go up and down and exercise, and you're not really changing the vowel, you're not really changing the volume. Then you want to start to observe maybe stillness between the reps, which means as you're going between, your first one, here, then you go up the piano a tiny bit, then you might go even higher. It's still that kind of same general kind of feeling, right? If you notice maybe one particular rep, you have to go a bit louder, a bit softer, then you want to redo that as well. So for example, if I go, ooh, if I find that kind of movement, and then I go for my next rep, ooh, and something kind of changes or it kind of moves away from that technique that I know, then I once again have to come back and try to redo it. Ooh, ooh. I'm trying to get a bit of a stillness between those reps as well. Now, of course, it would be amazing if we can get the stillness on every single rep and get that perfect kind of stretch, but this is not something that happens overnight. Building this ability is something that happens over time. So what that means when you're kind of practicing on yourself is try to get as much stillness as you can. If you're kind of hitting this wall and you're like, this is as still as I can get it at the moment, then just move on and then come back again the day afterwards, try to get it even better. Then do it again the following day and try to get it even better, as opposed to beating yourself because it didn't get exactly the way you wanted. So anyway, this is a quick tip, finding stillness in your voice. I hope this was useful. If it was, please do all the usual social media stuff. This really helps this channel grow. Once again, my name is Ivan. I'm your voice teacher. And if you want to work with me privately or want to check out some of the self-study programs, links are down in the description. Apart from that, I'll see you all for our next episode every single Thursday or Friday. Take care.